Hi, I'm Dennis from Plain Truth Ministry. Today I want to talk to you about the Apostle Paul as an example of the concept that where we started isn't where we have to finish. A full account of Paul's journey can be found in the book of Acts, beginning in chapter 9, and continues through the end of that book. We're introduced to Paul as a condemner of believers, trying to stop Christianity before it could even take root. After an intervention by the risen Christ on the Damascus Road, and through the grace of God, Paul becomes the deliverer of the gospel to the Gentiles. In doing so, he was giving Gentiles the opportunity to be saved. Paul speaks of this journey in the first chapter of his letter to the Galatians in order to reinforce the truth and completeness of the gospel and to reinforce why the Galatians should believe and understand and trust what he was saying. In my book, In Defense of the Gospel, A Journey Through Galatians, I speak to this at the end of chapter 1, after Paul has gone through his defense, and focused on the idea of where we start isn't where we have to finish, because Paul is a shining example of this. I want to read an excerpt from the book, from the end of chapter 1, as my thoughts in looking at Paul as the example. As I said, where we start isn't where we have to finish. But clearly, using Paul as the example, we can see that the path isn't always going to be easy. How many times have we doubted ourselves, or have we been doubted by others? How many times have we been put in a position to where we had to choose to defend ourselves or back away? How many times have we wondered why we have had to go through what we've had to go through? I think part of our role as Christians is to be witness of our faith to others. I think that's a big piece of who we are. Have you ever heard the phrases, meet people where they are, or walk a mile in my shoes? You never know when you're going to meet someone who's going through something you've gone through or something you've witnessed. How compelling and comforting could it be if you could tell them your story and tell them how faith in God has carried you through? The reality is that if you're authentic and genuine and share part of yourself, your witness will be powerful. An important thing to note here is that Paul, when he made his defense to the Galatians, didn't shy away from letting them know where he started. That was part of the context of who he became, and it's part of the context of who we become. Don't be afraid to tell your story. Somebody needs to hear it. In Paul's case, telling the story provided the evidence necessary to convince others that he was genuine, that by God's grace he was saved. Certainly his works weren't going to get him saved. That had nothing to do with saving him. Only God's grace through faith in Jesus Christ. As is true for all of us, works won't save us. As I said, we are only saved by God's grace through faith in Christ. But if we're truly saved and we embrace our faith, then the works that we do show the faith that is in us. Paul understood the importance of the gift that he was given, and through faith showed that understanding daily by spreading the one true gospel and defending it to his last breath. Helping others with our faith, helping others with our story, letting others see our warts. We can bring comfort to those people and hopefully bring them to the foot of the cross and introduce them to Christ. because that's all of our callings. I hope this leads you to think about your faith, think about your journey, think about your mission. I think about mine daily. We'll talk soon. Have a blessed day.